Rounding quotients to the nearest tenth. Well, before you can round quotients to the nearest tenth, you need to be able to round decimals to the nearest tenth. So let's just do a few of those. So if you were rounding 34.64 to the nearest tenth, what would that be? Well, that would be 34.6. If you were rounding 2.09 to the nearest tenth, what would that be? Well, because this is 5 or more, we're going to raise the score. That would be 2.1. And our last example, if you were rounding that to the nearest tenth, that's actually a little tricky. 5 or more, you're going to raise the score, so this 9 is going to raise up. This would actually round to 59 or 59.0. Okay, well let's go ahead and let's do some division. We're going to round to the nearest tenth. So just remember that you want to put that first dog in the house. The first number goes in the house. So we're going to put 54 in the house. Now since we're going to round to the nearest tenth, what I like to do before I even start, I get my decimal point up there. Here's our tenths position. Well, if you're going to round to the nearest tenth, we're going to need to know what this next digit is. I like to add 2 zeros before I even begin. So 7 into 5 won't go. 7 into 54 goes 7 times. That would be 49. Going to subtract, going to bring down a 0. 7 goes into 57 times. 7 times 7 is 49. Subtract, I get 1. Going to bring down our 0. 7 goes into 10 one time, and that's all the information we need because we're rounding this to the nearest tenth. So if we're rounding that to the nearest tenth, this answer would be 7.7 or 7 7/10. Let's do another one. So we want to get that first dog in the house. We're going to put the first number in the house. We're dividing by 6. So before I begin, I'm going to put my decimal and 2 zeros since we're rounding to the nearest tenth. 6 doesn't go into 4, but it will go into 41 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. I'm going to subtract and bring down. Now 6 into 59 goes 9 times. That's 54. Subtract, we get 5. I'm going to bring down a 0. 6 into 50 goes 8 times. And we're going to bring down that last 0, and 6 goes into 23 times. So we have all the information we need. We're rounding to the nearest tenth, so that would be 69.8 or 69 8/10. Let's do a couple more. So first dog in the house, we're going to get put 119 in the house. Our divisor is 3. Before I begin, I'm going to put my decimal point and 2 zeros. I think I'm going to change my pen color here. All right, so 3 won't go into 1, but it will go into 11 3 times. And 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract. And we're going to bring down. 3 goes into 29 9 times. I'm going to subtract. We get 2. I'm going to bring down our 0. 3 goes into 26 times. And we're going to subtract. I'm barely going to get this in here. And of course 3 goes into 26 times. This would be a repeating decimal. But we have everything we need. We're rounding to the nearest tenth. No need to go any further. So to the nearest tenth, we're going to round up. This would be 39.7 or 39 7/10. Let's do one last one. Now this next example, 3 divided by 7, is actually, it's like the fraction 3/7 because the fraction 3/7, this means 3 divided by 7. So let's find out what that would be as a decimal. I'm actually going to erase some of my work here. I have a little bit more space to work with. So 3 divided by 7. So I'm going to get that first dog in the house, 3. And we're dividing by 7. Now since I'm doing this to the nearest tenth, I'm going to add a decimal and 2 zeros. 7 does not go into 3, but it will go into 30 4 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Going to subtract and get 2. And bring down my 0. 7 goes into 20 twice, and we have everything we need because we're just no need to go any further because we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So to the nearest tenth, that would be 0.4 or 4/10. All right, well, let's do one more example. This is a little more practical. Let's say these were your four uh, grades on your last four math tests, and you wanted to know what your test average was. Well, the first thing we need to do is add up your test scores. So we have 85, we have 90, we have 100, we have a 70. So if we add up your four scores, we would have, let's see, 16, 24, 345. Okay, we need to divide 345 by 4 because you had 4 test scores. And we're going to round this to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to put a decimal and add 2 zeros. And let's go ahead and do this. So 4 doesn't go into 3, but it does go into 34 8 times. 4 times 8 is 32. I'm going to subtract. Bring down here. 4 goes into 25 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. Subtract 1. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 10 twice. And 4 times 2 is 8. And we'll bring down one more 0, and 4 goes into 20. Well, actually, it goes in perfectly. This is a terminating decimal. It ends. And if we're rounding to the nearest tenth, your average on those last 4 tests would be 86 and 3/10, an 86.3% average on the last 4 math exams. So that's pretty much how you round to the nearest tenth when you're dividing.